Welcome to the warm light. Quietly, as if snow were falling inside time itself, the evening smooths its creases. The tavern door creaks very softly, not from age, but like a friendly greeting. Come in. Leave the day's weight at the threshold. In here, it smells of pastry, warm wood, and dried herbs. The fireplace breathes evenly, like a gentle old animal, and its breath becomes our shared rhythm. I'm the badger who keeps this place. Don't ask how long I've been here. Every flame counts time differently. A campfire measures minutes, a hearth counts years, and a tavern keeps memories. Sit by the counter. Here's a cup of warm tea with a sugared orange peel resting on the rim. Outside, the sky is resting. The street lanterns are tuning the night's whisper to a softer key. Tonight, I'll tell simple stories, the kind that never ask you to prove anything. Stories like a quilt, patch by patch, until the warmth arrives. We'll go slowly, so your dreams can catch up. If your eyes begin to close, that's exactly right. I'll repeat what matters, then softer, then just with a smile. Ready? Then listen. If something sounds too important, don't worry, it will come back later in a different shape. A scent, a cup of tea, a remembered line. On warm nights, good things always return. Bread from the warm oven. Down our lane, there's a tiny bakery. By day it's busy and bright. By night it grows spacious and calm, as if the oven gently pushes the walls outward with its heat. Night bread is special. It's kneaded unhurriedly while the town speaks in half voices, and moonlight settles on the window ledge like a pinch of salt. The old baker, he looks stern by daylight, has lighter hands at night. He sets the dough and listens to it breathe. Bread must know it's wanted, he says, brushing the crust with milk so it will turn golden. Sometimes I bring him herbs from the tavern, a pinch of thyme, a breath of oregano. He laughs. Don't overdo the cozy, and adds them anyway. Night bread doesn't shout aroma, it simply whispers sleep. When the town watch wanders in near dawn tired, with ember-colored eyes, a single slice shortens the road home. I keep 2 loaves under a towel at the counter. Those who linger by the fire always receive the warm end. Every time I break off a piece, I think, may the night be soft as crumb, and may the sharp thoughts become crust, thin, crisp, harmless. The Svetelki's herbal tea. The Svetelki little glowfolk feel best in gentle light. They teach us not to chase brightness but to love even, steady glow. Their tea turns out the same way. One Svetelka taught me a blend for sleep. Nothing rare, linden blossoms, a hint of thyme, a mint leaf, and the most important ingredient, a whisper. When you pour the water, you softly say, "Thank you for the day." Not loud. Tea can hear. I tested the ratios. Too much mint and the mind feels fresh and eager sleep keeps walking. A touch more linden and the evening grows syrupy, pleasant but heavy. The best is balance. Guests often ask for the recipe on a slip of paper. I write it down and tuck in a grain of candied root, a secret crunch at the bottom of the cup. The Svetelki's tea promises no miracles. It simply pulls up a chair, wraps a blanket around your shoulders, and lowers the lamp until there's just enough light to find the pillow. Salt and the river's tales. Far to the south, where the river tries on the idea of becoming sea, the pilots live. They know how to read water and teach others to listen to its pauses. Once a season, one of them climbs up to us with a pouch of salt, big crystals, like snowflakes that decided to be sturdy. Salt is memory. It keeps the simple things, preserves taste. The pilot tells how, at night, water and sky trade places. The river becomes a dark sky, and the heavens begin to flow, fish stars blinking in the current. He speaks softly, afraid to spill the quiet. I sprinkle this salt on warm hand pies. A guest takes one, and a white trace remains on their fingers like a road drawn thin across a map. Isn't that a bit poetic, you might ask? Maybe, but poetry at night is just a way not to make noise. When the pilot leaves, he smells of wind and wet boatwood. I close the door behind him and set the salt on the top shelf. Let it wait for the next story about how water and sleep are alike. Both carry you someplace familiar and somehow different. The Book of Forgotten Sayings. I keep an old book, no cover, the binding tied with cords. Inside are proverbs from many peoples. Half of them no one remembers anymore. I like to open it at random and read a few aloud, as if I were airing out a storeroom of wisdom. Don't rush to wake the bread, it grows in sleep, say the leafkin. Salt doesn't ask for thanks, it is thankful itself, the river folk add. Throw a shawl over that thought, it might be cold, the Svetelki joke. Guests nod and smile. Proverbs are good because you can warm your hands on them even when you don't fully understand them. They're like old scarves. They don't ask who you are, they just circle your neck. Sometimes the book shuts itself. The window breathed a little too loudly. Then I smooth the binding and say, very gently, sleep. And the book hears. Wisdom is fond of pauses. The Cheese Fair of Crocheville. In Crocheville, the cheese fair is like first snow, only warm. Barrels, baskets, ribbons, laughter, all in soft colours. The cheeses differ. Some melt at the glance. Others have survived more winters than I have summers. One is called Long Road Home, thin rind, a spicy scent, as if you already missed it and have finally returned. Another is Noon on the Grass, mild, with a milky smile. A third is Star of the Night, dusted with tiny salt, squeaking under the teeth like moonlit snow. I bring a bit of each and slice them into slender triangles, so every guest gets a small traveller's flag. People taste and drift into thought. It turns out flavour can be a memory. By evening's end, a couple of rinds remain and a kind, quiet tiredness. I turn off the lamps, and in the half-dark, the cheeses look like little moons. Every circle has a sky of its own. The Night Watch of the Kvakri. The Kvakri, frog folk of the marshes, keep their wetlands like libraries. At night, their watchman walks the hummocks and water paths. He never hurries and never wakes anyone. His lantern glows so softly, the fireflies accept it as kin. He likes to say, "A bog is a library, the books simply walk." He reads footprints like lines of text and smiles at familiar words. Here, a family of ducks passed. There a quiet fox tried a dry spot and changed her mind. Sometimes he stops by before dawn. He sits near the fire and listens to the crackle like rainfall music. I pour him herbal tea. We rarely speak. When a person is well, words grow heavy and prefer to rest. Before leaving, he lifts his hat. Inside is a flat little stone. For luck, he says. But truth be told, luck is extra here. In the marsh, patience wins. Mina's honey cookies. Mina, the fennec, has golden hands. Her cookies smell as if the oven were releasing, not pastry, but the memory of a sunny day. The recipe is simple. The secret is the order of motions. The sugar meets warm milk, not at the start, but after the flour hears that tonight is its lucky night. Mina always bakes a little more than needed. Cookies like to be a reserve, she says. In the dough she adds a whisper of cinnamon, a drop of vanilla, and a crumble of candied honey for a crisp you can only hear with the heart. When they're done, she lays them out on a towel, and the kitchen fills with hush. Even the kettle tries not to sing. I carry a basket to the tavern and set it on the counter. Guests take one, and somehow it becomes easier to tell the world, "Thank you." There are always crumbs at the bottom. I never sweep them away. Let them be a sign that kind things truly happened. Letters from the Helm folk. The Helm folk of the mountains don't write long. Their letters are short and heavy, like nails, built to hold what must be held. Their paper is thick, scented with iron and smoke. The envelopes close with small round seals, so the road inside stays even. Once a letter arrived with no words. Inside lay a silver shaving and a tiny pattern etched along the edge of the page. I called a master who can read such things with his eyes alone. "It's a wish," he said, "for a calm wind on the descent, so the cart won't tremble on needless stones. We often measure words by length. You can measure them by weight as well. Helm folk words are heavy and therefore reliable." I tucked that envelope behind the book of sayings. Let it rest like quiet in a pocket. Sometimes merely knowing it's there is already enough. The Mushroomkin's road signs. The Mushroomkin walk the forest so gently the forest walks with them. They keep road signs that never appear in guidebooks. If a cap tilts north, it's time for a sip of water. If the stem looks thicker than usual, the bridge ahead is safe. They teach. Don't rush to conclusions when a tree is silent. Perhaps it's listening. And also, if the moss feels softer than usual, lie down and look at clouds. These advices seem odd until you realize the road is not only a way to go, but a way to be. A mushroomkin once left a small wooden token on my counter. a ring burned into it. If you forget why you're walking, he said, remember that a circle isn't a loop, it's an embrace. I keep it beside the pilot's salt. Sometimes I slip it into my pocket, nothing changes, and everything changes. Signs do not exist to limit you, they exist to walk beside you gently. The late night market lights. The late market appears not by schedule, but by mood. Vendors unfold their tables when they feel the night will be kind and unhurried. On the counters, candles, ribbons, paper stars for windows, jars of jam with August asleep inside. I like to buy small glass pendants that catch dim light and split it into warm layers. Hang one near a window, and even a cloudy day gains a glow from within. People don't bargain loudly there. They trade stories like small coins. Down in the marshes we, up in the hills we, then they part with no sense of loss. The market, like the night, takes nothing. It simply repackages quiet into tidy parcels. Sometimes I bring a box of candles back to the tavern. I light one, and it feels as if the door to the market stayed ajar. Take a half step, and you're already among kind voices. Until the fire grows small. That's enough words for tonight. Let the tea finish its warmth. The fire will keep breathing for a while, slowly, gently, smaller with every sigh. Your pillow knows the way from here. If you're still awake, take one more easy breath. Count it if you like. One for the road behind, one for the road ahead. The rest belong to sleep. We'll be here when you return. The counter, the herbs, the book that closes itself, the crumbs that prove sweetness, happened. Good night, traveler. May your dreams walk beside you like patient friends. Until the fire grows small. The Lantern Maker on Quiet Street. There is a lane behind the mill where noise forgets to go, and on that lane lives a tortoise who makes lanterns. He keeps his door open at night so the glue can breathe. From the threshold you can smell cedar shavings, orange peel, a hint of pine smoke. If you stand very still, you can hear him sanding the rim of a glass with a soft, even rasp, as if polishing a moon. The tortoise works slowly, and not because he must. Light that hurries is too sharp, he tells me, fitting a paper shade over a thin wooden rib. He speaks to glass by tapping it with a fingernail ping, ping, until the tone turns round. When it's right, the sound is almost a yawn. He smiles when it happens. There, that one will not wake a moth. His lanterns are made for different moments of rest. One is for the first minute after a book closes. It has a thick neck and carries the sweet smell of ink. One is for the half-dream that arrives while tea is deciding if it is still warm. It flickers once every few breaths, no more. Another is for guests who bring wind in with their coats. A drop of resin seals its seams, and the resin remembers forests. He gave me a lantern for the tavern window, small, greenish, with a wide mouth and a heavy base that won't tip when night stretches. Hang it low, he said, so the road can see you are not expecting haste. I hung it where the stars pause to listen. Since then, travellers come in quieter. They sit, they loosen the day from their shoulders, and sometimes they fall asleep before their tea cools. When I walk him home after a late delivery, we carry the empty box between us, and the lane smells of sawdust and dew. He locks the door without a click. Light, he says, is just a gentle way of telling darkness where the chairs are. I tell him that is a proverb. He says it is only a reminder. We both prefer reminders. Proverbs grow heavy if you wear them too long. Back in the tavern, the lantern glows like the inside of an apple. If you look through it, the world sways a little and becomes patient. And patience in this town is what sleep loves most. The Almanac of Slow Weather. On the shelf behind the bitters and mint, there is a book bound in soft grey cloth. It's the Almanac of Slow Weather. It does not tell tomorrow's rain or wind. It records the weather that takes place inside quiet rooms. I read from it when the fireplace is low and spoons are resting with their bowls to the ceiling. Third week of gentle time, one page says. Expect windows that do not hurry to fog, soups that remember the garden longer than usual, and doors closing as if they knew there is sleeping on the other side. Another page, the night of unnecessary keys. You will find them on hooks, in drawers, in your pocket, and none of them will be needed. Keep them anyway. They will weigh down the corners of your thoughts. The almanac was copied by a cricket scribe who used the tiniest quill so small the letters sound like rain if you read them out loud. The cricket travelled from kitchen to kitchen, attic to attic, collecting the way rooms behave after sunset. He wrote of kettle clouds, light and domestic, of blanket pressure, a low comfort moving in from the south, of the faint thunder that sometimes rolls through old floorboards when a house remembers laughter. Guests think it's a joke until it is not. When storms trouble the cliffs, we open the almanac to weather for the other kind of sea, the one that sloshes behind the ribs. It suggests sitting with your hands around a mug and counting the steam rings as if they were buoys. If a buoy sinks, it says, it is only greeting a fish. I have counted many such greetings. Mina loves the entry called Butter Moon. A bright, calm night when bread spreads without tearing, and even stubborn jars open with a soft sigh. The Kavakri quote, the hour of accepted puddles, when boots stop pretending to stay dry. The Helm folk favour clear skies of decent work, short paragraphs with honest nouns. Before closing time, I flip to the back. The last pages are blank, not because the cricket ran out of ink, but because we must write our own slow weather. I jot down, tavern, tonight. The chairs cooled evenly. Lanterns behaved. One snore from the armchair by the window, travelling northeast at 1 breath per minute. I close the book, and the room agrees. Night in the orchard with the cider fox. South of town, the hill wears an orchard, like a shawl apples stitched in patient rows. The cider fox keeps it company at night. He carries a rake for guiding leaves, and a bell that never rings, because bells, like stories, should be mostly implied after dark. He walks between trees that have been awake for more summers than we can count. Their bark holds the memory of many hands. He checks the straps that keep brittle branches from arguing with the wind. He listens for quarrels and persuades them into quiet. When he finds a fruit that fell too early, he nestles it under a leaf and says, "Sleep where it is softest." He taught me to hear the orchard's slow arithmetic. A row of trees can add up to a nap. The slope subtracts the breeze until only a ribbon remains. Crickets multiply, but their song divides itself into equal pieces. The moon is a round number, always generous. You will never finish counting, the fox says, so you may as well rest between sums. We sit on the press house step, and he passes me a small cup of cider that has not learned to be bold. It tastes of clover and warm shelves. Good cider, he says, is a witness, not a performance. He keeps notes in a book, no thicker than a paw, which barrels sighed, which staves swelled, how the floorboards creaked under the weight of late summer. His handwriting leans like an apple on a windowsill. At the far edge of the orchard, he has hung wind chimes made from trimmed twigs and seed pods. They do not sing so much as tell the temperature of the night. If the sound is crisp, the air is honest. If the sound is rounded, the air is thoughtful. If the chimes forget to speak, it means the orchard is sleeping and would prefer we do the same. Before dawn, we collect 3 apples with freckled skins, each the colour of a different morning. He sends me home with them in a paper bag that used to be a map. Eat one when you open the tavern, he says, and greet the day with a sweet mistake. The best mistakes are gentle. They taste like chances you didn't need to take but took anyway. And look how kindly the world answered. The Bridge Mender's Tea. Where the river narrows under the stone arch, an otter mends the bridge, not because it is breaking, but because everything that carries footsteps asks now and then to be reminded you are trusted. The otter lays out his tools, each evening wooden wedges, linen strips, jars of pitch, and a kettle. The kettle is important. He brews tea before he begins. Bridges do not listen to hammers, he says, until they hear water boiling. He pours a little on the stones. The steam rises like an old tune. He pours a little for himself and holds the cup under the arch. Hear that? He asks. I hear the slow return of drops to the river. That is patience, condensed. The tea is made from leaves that grew near footpaths, so it tastes faintly of going somewhere. While he sips, he runs a paw across the underside of the arch, reading it like Braille. He finds a hairline crack and hums until his voice is the same size as that line. Then he presses warm linen against it. The linen drinks the pitch and becomes a memory the bridge can lean on. Travellers pass above without noticing the mending, which is ideal. If I do it right, he says, no one thanks me. He tells me of nights when the river spoke too high, and he set his tools aside to listen from the bank, not for danger, but for where to put tomorrow. Tomorrow, he says, likes to be invited. Sometimes I bring him a plate of Mina's cookies. He eats one and saves one inside his toolbox for ballast. When he closes the lid, the bridge seems to settle. as if the idea of a cookie made it more secure. Before we part, he hands me a twig he whittled into a tiny wedge. Place it under a book that wobbles, he says. Most things want only a small kindness in the right place. Back at the tavern, I slide the wedge under the old proverb book, and the page I open to reads, "Rest is not the absence of weight, it is the evenness of it." The room of borrowed clocks. Our attic keeps a museum of time that no one needed to own. Travellers left clocks there for a night, sometimes for a year, and somehow forgot to carry them away. None of them tick alike. One counts the seconds it takes tea to cool from very warm to yes, please. One counts the distance between lightning and thunder in stories you tell yourself. One counts spoons, then forgets and starts again. I dust them on quiet afternoons. The dust smells of linen and good endings. There is a clock made from a shell that used to keep a hermit comfortable. It refuses to tick at all unless you place it on a folded sweater. There is a clock whose hands are small feathers. It tells only the time that falls off a bird when it lands. There is a square kitchen timer that has retired from boiling eggs and is learning how to dream. In the far corner stands a tall clock I never wind. Its face is blank, no numbers, only a circle the colour of tea with too much milk. It is the clock for the hour when no one needs to know the hour. Guests nap best beneath it. I have watched people breathe in ledger lines 4/4 time, then drift into waltz. Sometimes, late, I take a chair up and listen. The room does not clatter, it murmurs. A low purr of springs, a polite nod of pendulums, a sigh where a key used to fit. If you sit long enough, you hear them agree. Tonight will be long in a gentle way. I tried once to sort them, to impose a schedule, this one for rain, this one for bread, this one for letters. The clocks declined. We are borrowed, they seem to say. Borrowed things should surprise kindly, so I keep them as they wish. When a traveller climbs the attic stairs with hat in hand and a question in the eyes, I let the clocks answer. A single chime or none at all, and the traveller knows whether to stay for a story or to sleep immediately. On the way down, I turn off the lamp and leave the door slightly open. Light spills like cream, time, relieved, flows back into the hallway and curls up on the mat. And under the roof, the clocks go on keeping what we actually need kept, not minutes, but permission. The mat maker of quiet turns. There is a cupboard beneath the tavern counter that does not hold mugs or napkins, but weathered rolls of paper tied with baker's twine. They belong to the mat maker of quiet turns, a dormouse with a pencil no thicker than a whisker and hands that never startle ink. He comes by after closing, when the floorboards have stopped remembering footsteps and the kettle keeps water only for company. He maps the parts of our town that cannot be seen from the street, the way a sigh travels from the window to the hearth and forgets why it began, the slowness that drifts down a stairwell after someone decides to sleep, the path a crumb takes when no one admits to dropping it. He calls these turns not corners, not bends, but changes of heart. On his first visit, He spread a sheet on the counter and whispered, "Show me the places you keep for rest." I pointed, the chair that forgives long conversations, the nook where spoons dry without clatter, the lamp that prefers to be almost, not quite, off. He placed the pencil at the top of the page and drew a line that kept forgetting itself, then remembering soft, patient, like the way tea cools. "A good road," he explained, "never minds pauses. A road that minds them isn't a road, it's a hurry." He uses quiet instruments, a compass made from 2 needles and a thread that knows how not to tangle, a ruler held down with a pebble that once warmed a sleeping lizard, an eraser that removes only what never happened. When the lamp flickers, he waits. "Flickers," he says, "are the map telling me to breathe." Sometimes he maps the tavern as if it were a small country in a generous sea. The counter becomes a peninsula shaped like a thumb. The shelves are mild mountains where herbs migrate seasonally. The hearth is a round, polite volcano that erupts only in warmth. He draws paths called "Maybe Later," "Another Cup," and 5 more pages. They wind toward each other and never argue. He never writes, "Here be dragons." He writes, "Here be blankets." In one margin he wrote, "Resting weather," prevailing calm from the armchair, occasional drift of feather dust from the mantle, distant sound of patience from the lane. In another, he noted tea currents, clockwise when thinking, otherwise whichever way the steam fancies. I asked if maps could be humorous. "Only kindly," he said. "Cruel maps get lost." One stormy week he returned with a new role. An experiment, he admitted. He had tried to map the town without streets or roofs, just what the town does when no one asks it to do anything. The lines were gentle. Trees leaned into each other like neighbors who share sugar. The river insisted on being itself, and, finding no objections, was. The market square swelled and exhaled, even on Tuesdays. At the center, he drew a circle and labeled it a "good place to be tired." "Is it accurate?" I asked. He shrugged. "Accuracy is not the only truth." He maps for travelers too. The mushroom can consult him before crossing the ridge and learn which moss listens. The Kavakri ask where rain pauses to check its pockets. The helm folk purchase a thin strip of paper marked with 3 trustworthy footsteps, yours, mine, and another to grow into. They keep it in their vests like a spare path. Once a faceless wanderer came in at dawn, mask catching the dull blue of the sky. No mouth, just a pattern carved like soundless wind. The dormouse offered a tiny map with no lines at all, only a canvas that had been quietly touched. "Sometimes," he said, "the way forward is the room you're already in." The wanderer bowed and the mask tilted, and for a moment the tavern understood how remembrance can be a shelter. When the dormouse finishes a set, he rolls each map and slides it into the cupboard. "Why keep them?" I asked, pouring him tea. "People forget easily," he said. "It's how they rest. Maps help them forget on purpose, in the gentlest direction." He tucked the pencil into his vest. "Besides, I like the feeling of a place that has been drawn kindly. On evenings, when the room grows long and the fire learns to whisper, I take out one of his maps and put it on the counter where a list of orders would normally sit. Guests lean over and nod at roads with names like "Stay a while," "No need to finish that thought," "Take the window seat." Without deciding to, they do what the map suggests. The tavern then draws itself again, in us. If you open the cupboard, be slow. The twine remembers how it was tied. Unroll any sheet, and you'll see that a path leads from wherever you stand to where you would like to breathe. The distance is always exactly a cup of tea. Before he leaves, the dormouse draws one more line from the latch of our door to the corner where Night keeps its shoes. "Safety," he explains. I tell him, safety is bigger than a line. He nods. Then the line will grow while no one looks. He blows on the ink, which is already dry. Some things know how to be ready without being asked. When he steps into the lane, the town adjusts around him, as towns do for small, necessary people. I watch his hat, a neat dark dot, move along the edge of the morning. On the counter glows a map labelled "The Way Home, if home is here." I pin it by the lantern, not to keep it still, but to give the lantern a reason for its patience.